All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to What They Can't See, a podcast about navigating chronic conditions. I'm your host, Paige Tommaso, and I'm living with the chronic condition epilepsy. I work in the field of social work and mental health. I'm always encouraging others to live their most empowered lives, and we get to discuss some of the challenges and strategies to living with a chronic condition here on the podcast. I'm so excited. We have our first guest on the podcast today, and I'm excited for you to hear her story. Today, I'm joined by Caela Daly, a friend of mine who's also navigating her own journey with epilepsy. Caela's an inspiring woman, yes, who is a professional in the field of marketing. She is fluent in American Sign Language, has her own YouTube channel, and she's even training her own service dog. His name's Winston. He's super cute. Well, I'll let her tell you more about him. Today, Caela and I will be discussing some of the challenges that she's dealt with when it comes to her journey with epilepsy, because everybody's journey is different. We specifically touch on employment with disability and touching on the ADA. We also both agree that many people who have a chronic condition get stuck. So we want to elaborate more on what that means and encourage our listeners to reflect on their own experiences and how they might be able to take steps forward. For those of you who are new here, we're also joined by our producer, Fred. He's also my brother, so he knows a great deal about living with someone with epilepsy or a chronic condition. He's also a very insightful human being who might jump in now and again to help Caela and I navigate our conversation. Our co-host, Mike Mello, is not joining us today, but without further ado, here is Caela Daly.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not medical advice, as we are not licensed medical professionals. Please consult your healthcare provider for personalized medical guidance.
Hi, Caela. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Of course. We're happy to have you here. Okay, so let's see. So maybe we can start with some of the challenges that you've faced or have come across recently in your experience with epilepsy that are important to you that you can elaborate on a little bit.
Yes. So probably one of the biggest challenges I've recently faced with living with epilepsy is probably having to have a lawsuit, I guess, with my most recent work. I was let go because of having epilepsy. And it wasn't my first time, I guess, not being able to work with a company because I had epilepsy. So that was, I guess, challenging. So that was probably my most recent
Absolutely.
problem. Yeah.
So when we talk about the, the working, right? Like being able to work as a person with a chronic condition or a disability in general, I feel like we do see this pop up a lot where there are a lot of individuals who are discriminated against because of their condition. So, do you want to tell us a little bit more about your experience in the workplace, what you were doing, what your job was like, what it entailed, and also just be the badass that you are in terms of like what you're good at? We know you are amazing at your job. So, do you want to just give us a little look into what you enjoy doing and what your job was like?
So I had, I guess, a lot of different jobs while I was working with epilepsy. I have different backgrounds and throughout my life while living with epilepsy and dealing with it. So I had epilepsy since I was 21. So when I was in college, so I was going through college. So I was trying to make a living while, I guess, being a waitress. And I worked at like Dairy Queen. I worked at like ice cream places, kind of just doing anything, being in retail. I was doing marketing, and then I was just kind of doing anything and everything just to make a living. So it wasn't anything really specific. just kind of just doing anything, just
Yeah.
having epilepsy while doing that, which can be difficult.
That's actually a really good point to kind of go back to. Do you want to share a little bit about what your life looks like with epilepsy?
Yeah, of course. So when I first had epilepsy, I didn't really know how to deal with it. I worked um, in a place with people and didn't realize that I would have grand mal seizures. So it would be difficult to have to work while having epilepsy for me specifically. Of course, having epilepsy doesn't mean you can't work. Um,
Love that
so,
point.
um, so when I got older and my seizures for me specifically just got worse, I learned that I should get a job that for me meant I needed to go remote. So I learned that I just needed to work on my computer, which actually I like a lot more because I can just get up and just roll out of bed instead of having to try to find transportation. Um, because I can't drive, and when I got diagnosed with epilepsy, I was able to drive. Um, so for me, um, when I was working, right now I'm not working, but when I was working, I woke up and walked my dog. I I think it's a great just to see the sun and just get up and be able to just walk your dog, understand the morning and prepare yourself, and then have to get to work. And then um and then just log on to your computer for the day and then do what you need to do. But before that, having to go into somewhere that was a little more difficult when my seizures got worse for me, just because having to interact with people face to face and then having them see my seizures was it was a struggle because, at least for me, I don't have to go to the hospital every time I have a seizure, which is definitely different person to person. Because I have them so frequently, it's everyone's like, okay, that's normal for Caela. Like she's gonna come out of it, like she's good. But if just a customer or just someone sees it, they freak out and then they call 911. So if it's I'm in remote situation and I'm at home, that is just so much easier and no one calls 911. So it's just it's just a better situation for me.
And just to be clear to any listener too, you have supports at home, right? So
Yeah.
if something were to happen, you're taken care
Mhm.
of, people are aware that.
Yes, yeah.
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 Okay.
I have my parents or my um sometimes before I was living with my brother or I was living with a boyfriend who was also working at home. He also helped if I was having a seizure.
Yeah. I think that is an important thing and maybe not on task for our conversation, but at the same time, who cares? This conversation is going to go wherever it does. But I think that is a big thing. Living with someone with the support is so um, important for us in case of, because it is an emergency situation. When we have a seizure, we
Yeah.
need someone there, especially if you have an advanced type of epilepsy or you have multiple seizures a
Hmm.
week or a day or or monthly, when it happens. And especially if you don't know when the seizure is about to happen and you can't alert anyone, it is important to have someone around that can assist, because it is an emergency situation in terms of,
Hmm.
hey, let's get this taken care of. And then, Caela, we know you can get back to your life. It's more of just, let's make sure we take care of this, right?
Yes. Yes. I kind of feel bad since it is definitely an emergency situation, but then at least for me, it's so common for me that like it's an emergency, but then at the same time it's like, oh, this is emergency. It's a Caela emergency for the day. Then we're moving on. We're good.
Yes.
It's just we're good. It's the next day situation.
Yeah.
But
And no,
then
and I
if
love
it's
that for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if I was working in like an actual place, then it would be like, oh my God, we have to go call 911. Then it'd be a whole entire situation. We would shut down the store. And then like that wouldn't be a good for anyone. It wouldn't be good for the store or the customers or anyone. So it was just better for me, the company itself, the customers and everyone that I worked remote and everything.
And you know what? I also think this is such good advocacy on your part, advocating for yourself, like knowing, hey, this is going to make it more, and not just about the customers, because sometimes I'm like, screw people, because I'm a normal person,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm a person too. It's okay. Like I have this condition, but it doesn't define who I am. At the same time, you've been able to understand what works best for you in your own situation, because we know everyone's situation with a chronic condition or with epilepsy is different. So I love that you've been able to understand what feels best for you. And in this day and age, remote jobs are very common. So that will, open up some more. It doesn't keep you, well, there are limitations, right? Like we all have limitations and you recognize yours, but at the same time, it doesn't have to hold you back from being a member of society.
Honestly, I worked remote for I think 3 years at one point, and I was talking to my parents, and I was like, okay, you know what? I think I want to get back into going into a store situation and talking to customers. I think I'm ready for that. And I got hired at a store, and I was like, I got this. I'm so ready. I'm excited. And so the person's like, okay, next day is training. That night I went home. I'm like, okay, I gotta walk my dog. And so I was walking my dog, talking to my dog about how excited I was. Boom, fell on my face, broke my cheek, everything. The neighbors since I had a seizure, the neighbors had to come out. 911 was called. Like my face was broken, like everything was broken. My headphones were actually broken. Like it was so bad. I had to end up having to text my boss and say, I'm sorry, I actually have to quit this job. I don't think the customers are ready to see my broken face. Like they're not prepared to I don't think I can actually help these people. Like since sometimes when I go to like if I post like a video online showing like American Sign Language or something, some people think like I'm getting beat up or something. And so then it's like a dangerous situation and I don't want to show that to customers. And so it's not a safe situation for them. So then I was not ready. I was not in a good situation there. So it's kind of just knowing when like I'm ready for that kind of a remote situation or a like an in a store situation. And that was definitely like God saying, "Hey, Kayla, you're not ready yet. Stay remote right now."
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting about that too is, the podcast is called What They Can't See. And this is kind of
I
where the
could do
line
that.
starts blurring, right?
Yeah.
Where, whatever, I mean, Kayla, I'm sorry that happened to you
Yeah.
because, I mean, nobody wants to fall on their face and break their cheekbone, or like be bleeding and it's 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 not like a fun experience, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it is oh, I was so excited to start this job and now I'm not going to be able to start that job.
Yeah.
So, and I know like you're so good at being like, don't worry about it. Like I'm
Yeah.
moving on. You're really good at that. And I admire that. I really do. But just to kind of speak to the listeners here as well, who might be in a similar situation where, they have to step out of work or their invisible illness, quote, quote, is now visible, right? Now it becomes something that people can see. Or if you do drop in a store and have a seizure or drop on the street, like people are witnessing that. And so it's invisible until it's not, right? And that can be really challenging. So I know you can kind of speak to that more if you'd like to. If not, we can move on.
Yeah. No, it is definitely challenging. I think it's, at least for me, I take it I try to take it more as like, okay, that is just, it was a sign for me, like, okay, maybe you're just not ready. Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was ready. I had to move on and just say, okay, going into a place where people could see me, I guess that wasn't a place for me. Not ready yet. So
Yeah. And
still,
that's a and that is like one way of like viewing it that I think we can later on take that into consideration when we talk about people being stuck, and that there's
yeah.
always something else we can do.
Mhm.
So I like kind of putting that on the back burner for now.
Yeah.
um I'll never forget, like it was 2024. I had um I had a seizure. I had never had a seizure in public. Like I always had my seizures at night. That's why. Like they were always at the same time at night. And then it happened in the middle of the day in Home Goods, right where you exit the store. So like, you've been to Home Goods,
Yeah.
yeah, or like a Marshalls. They have
Mhm.
that line and it's just like so long. Like I don't think I've ever been in that store where there's like not a line, you know?
Mhm.
So this is happening and I'm grateful that I know when my seizures are happening, like and when they're coming. So I was able to
Mhm.
sit down at least. But this full-on seizure is happening in the middle of the store. And 911 is called, right? Like all the
Yeah.
things. I wake up and I'm like, there's people around me saying, we're going to the hospital. And I'm like, no, we're not
Mhm.
going to the
Yeah.
hospital. I have this condition and this is something that's a part of my life. And I remember this person just kind of saying, like, no, you're going. No, you're going. And I said, you don't have the right to tell me that. So sometimes we have to stand up for ourselves and be like, no, right? So it kind of just ties into what you're saying. I'm like, you know what? It's a part of my life. I have this. I'm going to get up. I'm going to keep going in
Yeah.
whatever way I can. But sometimes we do have to speak up for ourselves. And then
Yeah.
she kind of like, snapped out of it and was like, oh, yeah, yep, let's just do a check and make sure that you're okay. Like, how many
Mhm.
fingers do I hold? Right. The whole like neuro check kind of
Yeah.
thing. I knew who I was. I knew my birthday. I answered all their questions perfectly. And she's like, okay, well, we encourage you to go, but we can't actually take you. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so those are always
I don't know
interesting
why
when you have
they,
other people involved, you know?
yes, I don't know why they always encourage you to go when you're fine. It's always embarrassing. It's just like, okay, like, let's move on. Like, I'm fine. Like,
I
let's
know.
go. I'm trying to move on here. Like, you can go.
Yeah. And there were already like 10 people trying to leave the store, and I was
God.
blocking the entrance. You know what I mean? So it
Yes.
was like one of those times where you're like, this probably couldn't have happened in a worse area. But at the same time, like, this is who I am. This is part of my
Yeah.
life. And I'm not going to let it, like, I'm not going to let anyone influence the way I respond to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get more embarrassed when I'm at the gym and I fall off a treadmill and I have the people come and everyone thinks it's like the older people, but it's me and it's just like, oh my God, please just stop looking at me. Like everyone, like, yes, I fell off a treadmill. Like, move on. Like, keep going.
Yeah. There is this like fine line where it's like, well, you want to make sure someone who just fell off a treadmill is okay, whether they have epilepsy or not, right? Like, have you seen those videos online where it's like people falling off the treadmill
Yeah.
and you're like, are they
I,
okay? Like,
yes.
like it actually looks like a painful experience, whether you
Yeah.
have the condition or not. So,
Oh my God. I know. Well, the thing is I always think to myself, like, what did I look like falling off a treadmill? Because I must have looked so stupid. I must have been like, oh my God. Like, if I was the person looking at myself, I must have been like, what is wrong with that woman? Like, is she okay? Like, what is wrong
okay, I
with
see that
her?
side too. Yeah. But
Like,
right. But those like accidents do happen. People misstep or they step on like the part that's half moving and half not. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. There's a reason there's a red emergency button on a treadmill, right? Like for it to stop, right? So, um, and I don't mean to be like giggling, but like, right? Because it happens. It's like something that happens. So I could see people wanting to make sure you're okay, but at the same time, for you, it's like, no, this is just part of who I am, and I'm upset that this happened right now, or however you feel about it. But like, I'm gonna get up and keep doing my thing.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. I never good. It's just, I'm just like, okay, like no one look at me. I always keep my head down trying to walk out.
Do you walk out after that, or do you stay?
No, I walk out, but then
Okay.
I go to the gym the next day. I walk out, but then I go the next day and be like, okay, I'm here. Like I have all these bruises and cuts and bruises, but like I'm here. Like you can't keep me down. Like I'm here, people.
Yeah. See, I think that's something that like can be so admiring for some listeners too, is like just because you have whether it's a seizure, a flare up, whatever kind of chronic condition you have, whatever kind of symptoms you have, that there is a fine line where it's like, okay, like for me, I would definitely not be at the gym next day because I get really bad postictal, which is like after a seizure, there's like symptoms that happen. Sometimes you could be really tired. Like I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
even be able to make it to the gym the next day. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
wouldn't be doing that. But I think your whole attitude towards resilience in this situation is very admirable. And people can take, like, okay, just because I had something happen to me doesn't mean that I have to stop my life and stay here and stay stuck in that. And I know that we're going to talk about stuckness too.
Well, I roll out of the bed. I like roll out of bed, put my gym clothes on, and think to myself, okay, I'm gonna be getting ice cream after after I go to the gym. Like as much ice cream as I can, as much pizza as I'm eating. Like I'm gonna be eating as much bad food as I can be eating. Like I'm in so much pain, but like these people have to see how much like that I am back in here. Like whatever.
Okay. That's really interesting. I feel like we could have a whole conversation on like almost the motivation for getting
Yeah.
back there. Like, is it for yourself or is it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
others?
Yeah. Like I mean, you were an athlete. Um, I don't know about you. I played three sports in high school and I mean, as a very aggressive athlete and
Love it.
I don't know. I was just I had to like I had to play. I had to like I don't know. Um I just had to practice. Had to be aggressive. And for me, like if I and like now as an adult, since I don't play sports now, thankfully, um, I I have to work out a certain amount of days a week. And if I do hurt myself or have a seizure while working out, I know people like think to themselves like, oh my God, like that girl fell off a treadmill, like, oh God. And I know how people can view seizures, like, oh, she doesn't look like she has epilepsy or anything. And for me, like, I just know like I have to be like against that. Like, I don't know. It's just in my head, I guess. So I just have to go the next day and prove them wrong and be aggressive, like not like aggressive. I'm not going to beat up these people, but aggressive in the fact of proving them wrong.
Interesting. Okay. So here's I want to talk about this. What's interesting is like for me, yeah, was a competitive athlete. I played soccer in college. So like at one point in my life, athletics was everything to me. Like, and that transferred into the gym and all that, right? And then, now being in my 30s, like and having had four surgeries in 2017 and then a surgery recently, like I've just realized that physical fitness actually provokes seizures for me.
Yeah.
Breakthrough seizures. So like, and auras too. Like, but it actually is the cause, can be a cause. So physical exertion, dehydration, and it's always the next day, which is interesting. I haven't really been able to get an answer on why that is. But if I feel intense muscle soreness, things like that will provoke a seizure for me now in my life. So I've had to take a different approach because for me, personally, I'd rather not have the seizure.
Yeah.
And so, right. So like what I've been doing is I have my gym membership. I go in and I'm on the treadmill. I can't at this point lift weights that are like, I need to do body weight strength exercises. That's the best for me because the intense pushing or pulling, I'm holding my breath. It's more pressure in the head, like things like that. And we don't have all the full answers. My doctors have never, I mean, all the doctors I've seen, nobody can kind of answer this question well, but that is something that is real in my life. And for me, I'm like, well, I would rather cut my exercise to what is, and this is how I do it, is I say like, if I'm working on like the scale of like 1 to 10, how bad's your pain? Like, can you rate this 1 to 10, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it, it's called the rate of perceived exertion and exercise. And it's like, how hard are you working on a scale of 1 to 10? And so for me, like I never go above a 6. So because if I go above a 6 or my heart rate goes above 140 beats per minute, then I'm setting myself up for seizure-like activity, which I personally have a goal of avoiding. Like I want to make sure that I'm not putting myself up for a seizure that I could influence the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, I kind of have been able to finagle and gauge like what's helpful in exercise and what's not in terms of my seizures. The only thing is like, yes, Caela, I get it. I was probably like the most aggressive athlete I knew. Of course, I want to get on that treadmill and do sprints and run as fast as I can for as long as I can and lift a ton of weights. I've just realized like maybe for me right now, that isn't helping me. And that's me as another individual with epilepsy with a different case, right? We're different people. So that's a big emphasis, but that's kind of what I've reflected on. So I appreciate the different perspectives here.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like I think that's really hard as an epileptic because I think I just learned that on Friday. I am now weightlifting. I took the stance of weightlifting and I had a seizure on Friday after weightlifting. But then I was getting told by my doctor maybe like to exercise more. And then now I'm exercising more and I'm more than having seizures after I'm exercising. And then it's just like,
Okay, so I'm not alone in this because
no.
nobody seems to have an answer for me. And I'm like, well, it's such a trend. Like this is happening.
Yes. Yes. It's just like the more you drink, the more you have a seizure from drinking. So like I stopped drinking. So now I'm not drinking. And then you exercise more. So now it's just what do you do now? So like exercise is supposed to help you so much, but now I'm having more seizures from exercising. Like
So I like one thing to maybe like vibe off of at this point is I've been frustrated with this because everything in me wants to be like fit and right, like all the things that I used to be, right? Like I was the hardest worker, the most aggressive, just like you were saying, right? Everything in me, there is that, like for you, you had mentioned like proving people wrong. Like there are things in our lives that like push us to want to do it. And so for me, I kind of do this like cost benefit analysis of like, well, what is it costing me? And I never want to see a seizure as a negative thing, right? Like we don't want to have that viewpoint because then we get too stringent and too scared, like fearful of having them, right? Does that make sense? Am I with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to develop the mindset of a seizure equals the end of the world. That's something where people do get stuck in. So
Yeah.
I never want that to be my mindset. However, it does feel like something that I can help myself with and control in a way. And I never think control is necessarily a good term, like just to say it. Because we've never been able to fully control our bodies. That's just the reality of it. But I'm thinking like if I have a strategy that's helpful, which is okay, I can't, not that I can't, but right now in this moment, I'm going to keep my heart rate at this certain level. I'm going to go at this pace for as long as I can. But as soon as I start to work over that amount, I'm going to say, great, that was enough for today. And then I'm going to come back. For me, I go every other day because every day right now is too much. I
Hmm.
know in a few months I'll be able to go every day. But for right now, restarting up, I'm kind of meeting myself in the middle to be able to know that I can get up the next day, I can do this podcast, I can do
Yeah.
my work, I can function mentally, physically, spiritually because I haven't exerted myself to the fullest extent.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I also need to think and remember to myself, me being an aggressive athlete, it was not a good thing. Like I was, I was not a good and aggressive athlete. And in college, I was like running really hard every day. Like it was not a good thing. Like I should not be remembering it as a good thing. Like
Okay.
it was, it was not a good thing. So I need to remember like exercising extremely hard every single day was not a good thing. So I need to think of other strategies, maybe like yoga. Like that is also exercising. So maybe other strategies, stuff like that, should have been, I should be thinking is a better thing.
Yeah. And like, ultimately, again, like we're adults, we can decide what we want to do.
Yeah,
It's more of just, yeah, like maybe challenging, like, was this actually helpful for me? And
exactly.
is there any longevity behind it? Like, will I be able to sustain this for my life? What can I sustain? So, like you're saying, like yoga could be a great solution.
Hmm.
Um, some of the best athletes I know commit to yoga, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yoga's their thing now. Like they don't even do what they used to do, but yoga is what
Yeah.
helps their body rejuvenate and restore.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I know, or even like Pilates or bar, like the
Oh, yeah.
less intense, like in terms
Yeah.
of the heart
I
rate.
do want to try Pilates. That is a cool
Maybe we
thing.
can try
But
it together.
yes, I have heard that's a really cool thing.
I know exactly what you're saying, Kayla. Like there are so many things I want to prove to myself. For me, it's myself. Like yesterday, I went out and I shoveled snow, and I was like, I'm gonna do the whole damn thing because I've got a mailbox with 8 feet of snow. That like from the mailbox to the road, there was 8 feet of snow. And if you want to get your mail, your mailbox needs to be clear. And so I'm doing this by myself, shoveling, and I'm like, girl, you're so powerful. You can do this. Well, guess who woke up in the middle of the night with a ton of auras, which are, if anyone's new to the terminology, they're just seizure like activities that are kind of warning signals. So for me, I get a tingling sensation and they keep me awake. They're like warning signs of like, you better slow down, biatch, because, you're going to have a consequence if you don't. So, it's not and it takes away my functionality for the next day. So I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, am I gonna be good for the podcast tomorrow? Like, right? Like I had other things planned. Like I could have done 30 minutes instead of 2 hours of shoveling, and that would have been great. It still would
I'm
have been
sorry.
helpful. So maybe there's some yoga in Kayla's future, as well as not avoiding the gym, not going, just understanding what might be helpful. And I admire that you get right back up. Um, so
Can I
I
jump in
think,
for a second? Oh, yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I was just going to maybe a quick little segue. You guys, are able to kind of laugh at it and empathize with yourselves, push yourselves, not be stuck. There's also the other side of it where you get diagnosed and maybe you feel like now I can't do anything. You guys are it's seemingly on the other side of that.
I think it's really easy to feel like that when you first get diagnosed. Um, I mean, when you first get diagnosed, you kind of think your world is over with anything, even if it's not epilepsy, with any diagnosis. At least for me, having epilepsy, I know I'm gonna keep having seizures because I am drug resistant, and being stuck in my house is I love my parents, but is terrible for me. I I went to college in Tampa. I loved doing everything, and I played 3 sports, loved doing anything and everything, and not being able to do anything is sounds awful for me. So, um, just because I have epilepsy, I like as soon as I got diagnosed, I looked up what can I do to like I know it's for me it's not curable. So like what can I do to help it? So I got a service dog. I I looked at as many doctors as I could go to, what medications I could look at. If I fell off a treadmill, so I looked at other treadmills. What I can do to help me. So I got the what is it called that you can clip on the emergency thing.
Yeah.
So it immediately stops is it if it feels like something fell on it. So so luckily next time I fell off the treadmill and it stopped. So it didn't keep going. Which was the first problem the first time. Um, but it's kind of just like a mindset of you you can feel like you just stop your life and don't do anything with it. But why would you just want to? Like just continue it and you can feel normal and you just have epilepsy, or you can just continue it and just just have it for the rest of your life and it get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really well said, Caela. I do feel like there's this, especially because you're a living testimony of it, right? Like, of, okay, this happened, this is happening to my body. This is what I'm living with. And I I know that there are certain limitations I have now. I know that that's real. But I'm still going to look into what can I do still? What are the things that I'm going to stay empowered. I'm going to work on what are the things that I can continue doing. And that also speaks to our support systems and the people around us. It speaks to how our doctors speak to us. But like you said, that mindset of, I'm not going to give up on life because this happened.
Yeah. You can still work. You can still do things. It's it's okay that you you go out and have friends and go out with family. And just because you have a diagnosis, um, doesn't mean you have to stop living your life. Um, you can have a pet. It's great. Um, just there, just because there's, I mean, there's also other great things. When I got diagnosed with epilepsy, I used it as an excuse to get a tattoo. Don't tell my parents.
I love that.
Um, I mean, there's so many things that you can use it as a positive. But it's just so easy that a lot of people use it as a place just to pause in their life, which is really sad.
We all have what we might call, quote, a bad day or like a challenging day, that maybe we do have a seizure, or we have different symptoms, or we're more limited because we know we're at full capacity. And we just need to rest. Whereas there's and then there's the constant mentality of, well, I have this challenge in my life and it holds me back from everything that I want to do. So it's very disempowering. So the way that I would, kind of phrase this is, a lot of people get stuck in what I've talked about before as this like lack mindset. So it's, what can't I do? What don't I have? It's very stuck in, what if something happens? Or I'm not sure, it's all looking down on yourself and the condition, where we kind of want to move into the mindset that Caela has and that we try to live by, which is the more abundance mindset of, what are some of the things I can do? And if I can't do them to the fullest extent of, say, someone else, like Caela, you had used the example of having a job in person. Well, what can I do that doesn't necessarily require me to be in person full time or something like that? So you're always looking for that way of, well, how can I do this? Or at least do one thing. So if you're listening and you're someone who has a seizure once a week or 5 times a day, or, however, or maybe, maybe you haven't had a seizure in a while, but this is still something that holds you back. Just in case, like the what if, like, I've been seizure free for X amount of time. What if this new change or this new challenge causes me to have one, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, why, like, I feel like we should be thinking, well, what's one thing I can do? And even if we just start with one thing, or maybe challenging that thought process and saying, okay, I recognize that I have this fear here, a fear of having the seizure, a fear of, what if someone sees this happen, a fear of, like, whatever it might be for you. How can we challenge that thought in a healthy way and say, you know what? I understand there's the possibility of this happening. It's always going to be a possibility because seizures are now a part of our life, right? That, or whatever your condition is, it's a part of your life now. Doesn't mean that we're going to lose hope in it being curable, okay? Like, that's not what I'm saying. But for now, we're working on this ongoing acceptance of, okay, I recognize this is here. It feels limiting. It feels scary. It feels like I'm stuck. Can I challenge that and understand I'm still a human being? I'm still capable. I still have strengths. I'm still, and you can list those strengths. What can I do with those strengths? And what's one thing that I can do to move into an abundance mindset of focusing on what I can do, not what I can't?
Yep.
All the snaps.
Exactly.
Well, I love that, Caela. And I know, like, even with you and your service dog, right? And like training your own service dog, like, you're just so resilient in that. So do you have any other tips or comments for people who might be feeling stuck right now? Because I'm sure they're like sick of me hearing my 2 cents. So do you have any tips or yeah.
I think it's very normal to feel stuck. So definitely it's normal, and keep listening to this podcast and you'll feel unstuck. So, yeah, great. You're in a great position. You're good.
You're sweet. Yeah, this podcast is definitely about unsticking. And that's why Caela's on this podcast, just so you all know. She's a great inspiration for challenging, unsticking, trying to move forward and make the best of what she has. All right, so I think it's time to move into your work experience, Caela, and the adversity that you've dealt with, because you're not alone in this. I've heard this, in working in the field for 5 years. You are not the first person or second or third like person that I've heard run into some really unfair, unjust experiences in the workplace. So I'd love to hear your experience. I know that you have your, the job that you were at and you've been through a lot with it. So I'd love to dive in there.
Yeah, so my first job that I guess sued my boss was at a publishing company, and I was in Zoom marketing, and it was really weird. It At first they like it was always okay. Like my disability was always okay. And it's never it's never uncomfortable or not okay until there's a problem with it or they see it in person. Um, like when I say, hey, like I'm not feeling well, or I had a seizure, or hey, I'm sorry, my face isn't looking too good. I have a black and blue eye because I had a seizure last night or something, and I hit my eye or something. And I go, oh, it's okay, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then I actually have it in front of them and it's in front of a client. And then that's when it is a problem for them because it affects their business. And then that's when it goes south.
Okay. So is this the same company that you've recently fought for the lawsuit?
No, that is a different company.
Okay. So I think it's important for just to say it for listeners, if you are working and you're experiencing workplace discrimination because of your condition, there are laws that protect you. So we are talking here about the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I think Caela can give us a good kind of like definition or overview of what that means in the workplace. Do you mind sharing that, Caela?
Yes. So in the workplace, so first when you apply for a job, you can tell them you have a disability or not, and you are allowed to have accommodations in the workplace, and it depends on your disability. If you need breaks, if you don't need breaks, or it depends on what disability you have and what the accommodations look like for you.
And your employer is required to give the reasonable accommodation.
So for us specifically that we wanted to touch on is, do we talk to our employer about having a disability in the workplace and what that looks like for your employer and how they react to you having a disability. So a lot of times, a lot of people say when they do tell their employer they have a disability, employers may react unfairly. A lot of employers or a lot of companies don't react well. They might not outwardly fire you or say we're firing you because you have a disability, but they might let you go because they might say, hey, we're letting you go because we just don't have, like, our company is downsizing, or other legal ways they can say, like, they're letting you go. And then in that sense, you can't, I guess, sue them, which is really hard. So that's why it's really hard for a lot of people to say that they have a disability or they don't.
Right. So this circles back to when we first started this conversation, and you had mentioned that, you know, it seems fine and dandy to have a disability and to let employers know about that until it's an inconvenience for their company in a certain way. So, do you want to kind of share an experience when that happened to you and what the result was?
Yes, so that's why is my first lawsuit with my publishing company, um, where this is public information. So that's why I'm allowed to share it. Um, where I sued them, and it's just um and she basically said, Caela, um sorry, I have this on my phone. Caela is annoying and didn't um tell me that she had epilepsy, and if she did, I wouldn't have hired her. Which,
Mm.
which first of all, like, why are you telling a judge this? This is very weird.
Oh, she said that to
Oh,
the judge?
yes, this is it's she said she's a cancer and immature liar who has epilepsy.
My jaw is on the ground right now.
Yeah.
First of all, if you know Caela, none
Yeah.
of that about her personality is
Yeah.
true.
Rude. Like, who says it? Like, just because I have seizures doesn't mean you can say that. Like, rude.
So how did that end up playing out with the judge and
I,
everything?
yeah, I did end up winning. Um, she didn't pay me what she owed me. Um, I didn't go, I didn't end up going after what she owed me because honestly, I just, I cared more about winning. As you can tell, I'm
Back to
a
the
very
competitive
aggressive,
athlete.
competitive, aggressive person. I just more just like, as you can see, this is what she says about me. This is like, and this is what a lot of disabled people go through. Um, but yeah, like this is what a lot of disabled people go through. And this is what we have to deal with in life. And it's just, it's really sad that disabled people have to go through this throughout like everything. And then at the end, I'm lucky that this is public and she has so many lawsuits against her because she does this through a lot of other people. But at the end, more disabled people can't talk about this legally because so many corporations um, shut it down and have disabled people not be able to talk about it either, even though they won. So it's also even more sad that even though disabled people win, they can't even talk about it either.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So I
because
think, go ahead.
in like in a lot of cases that disabled people win, um, the corporation will put in like we'll give you X amount of money, but you can't talk about this with anyone. You can't talk about this in public. And of course, disabled people would want that money because they aren't getting any money. And so they say yes. And of course, I would say yes too. And so they say yes, but then they can't talk about this. And so then no one knows about this. And so that's why it's not known.
Look at you being an advocate. Love it. Because here's the thing, right? Yeah, you are fortunate in the way that you can talk about it because now people can be aware of it, which is what we want our listeners to know. Like, we don't want to provoke fear here in anybody. Like, we don't want anybody to feel like, oh, but I might get fired, so I probably shouldn't take this job. Or, like, we don't want you to make any decisions out of fear. I think the biggest thing is letting people know that you're not alone. Like if you're going through this or you know someone going through this, there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm using the little quotey fingers right now if you're listening on Spotify, because like there's nothing wrong with you. It's if it benefits the company to let you go, then that's what they're going to do. And I've heard many stories happen. This has happened to many people, and I don't think they're actually allowed to tell me the full story, which is why I don't know the full stories, but they're in the middle of fighting their company because they've been, like you said, let go. Like they've been let go for some reason or laid off, right? Some way that the company can without breaking the law, make sure that they don't have to deal with those accommodations or deal with what they think might be an unreliable employee or however they're labeling us, right? In that situation. So no matter what your disability is, there's going to be challenges when it comes to an employer who feels that I shouldn't say there are going to be. There might be challenges with the disclosure or the unfortunate happening of an episode or something like that in the workplace.
Yeah. Again, this isn't about no company. No specific company I'm talking about. So no one sue me.
Caela, I don't even know who you're talking about. I just know that there are people out there. Yeah, there are just people out there fighting the companies that they've worked for.
They are. It's really sad. And I don't know how. I understand, like, thinking about it as just like as a person in general, not someone who has a disability. I understand why, as like when trying to get a job and seeing do you have a disability? Are you a veteran? Like, what's your race? What's your gender? I understand why they put those questions on there. And just seeing like what's your disability and seeing like yes, I have a disability or no. It's really hard checking yes on it because I know that it's going to work against me. And at the same time, it's just like I'm unemployed. Like I need a job. And like they don't know how I can help their company, Like it's just, I don't know, it's really sad seeing all of that.
So just to let everyone know too, if you're looking to get a job, if you're, if that's something that's in your future or if you've ever even filled out an application before, disclosure for a disability is always voluntary. So you're not legally required to check yes if you have a disability. You're not legally required. That's right, Caela? I just want to double check. So you don't have to do that. If you do need accommodations, like let's say, for example, you're working for a company that you have epilepsy. I'm just giving a hypothetical. You have epilepsy, and this job requires you to work from 8 p.m. to 4 in the morning. But you could potentially have a job at the same company in the same role that would, allow you to work 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That might be an accommodation that is necessary because in epilepsy, our sleep is super important. So if that's a non-negotiable for you, it might be beneficial to disclose that. Now, they might not hire you, right? They might be like, well, I need someone to work 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., right? But if you need those accommodations, or let's say it's even like, I really need like an hour break in the middle of my day. Like that's a non-negotiable. I just need an hour to decompress or, whatever it is. Then you might consider disclosing. There are also companies that they are required to hire I think it's like 7%. I could be off on that, of their employees need to have disabilities. So in that case, it's like, well, if they need someone who needs a disability, I might be able to fill that box, right? So there are different like reasons as to why, or maybe you need extra equipment if you have a physical disability, right? You might need a certain type of desk or whatever that might look like, or a wheelchair accessible area, right? So that might be a reason to disclose. But with epilepsy, it's tricky. I find it tricky, and I want to kind of hand it over to you, Caela. But I think that it really does depend on the job description, because if if I know I'm capable of something, but I think, well, if this company sees that I'm checking off disability, then are they already going to have assumptions about me that I can't do something? Are they going to even give me the benefit of the doubt or the chance to explain it?
Yes. Yeah. I already think it's really tricky since I'm 27. No, I'm not 27. I'm 26. Oh my God. I'm 26. And I've already been in 2 lawsuits, like, because of my epilepsy. Like, this is sad. And in a workplace, like, what is my future going to be in a workplace with epilepsy? I don't know. And that's really sad. And I, like, every time I fill out an application, I have to think to myself, am I going to put yes? Am I going to fill this out? Am I not going to fill it out? And what is my employer going to be like? What is HR going to be like? So I don't know. I think it's a lose-lose situation. Um, and which is a sad point. Like, I unfortunately I want to be positive on this point, and I want to make headways in this, but unfortunately we're at a negative like point on this, and one day hopefully we'll make strides in this, but right now we're just not there.
I so appreciate you sharing something that is vulnerable and like the real, like, right? Like, we're here to talk about what it's like to live with disability, or, an invisible chronic condition or whatever. And here's a challenge in your life, right? This is specific to Caela right now, that is almost like telling you no, right? So a roadblock that's like, no, Caela, I don't know about this. Like, this isn't you saying, I'm going to the gym today and no one can stop me, right? It's not the same mentality. It's a it's a barrier, it's a roadblock right now. And so it's a little bit closer to the heart. And that's why I want to just acknowledge that this must be really challenging.
Thank you. And it's just like, how am I going to get an apartment then? Like, how am I going to make money? And it's not just like going to the gym. Like, it's like, how am I going to go buy food? This is not just like a tiny thing. Is how am I going to make money? This is a job, like we're talking about. It's not just like a tiny thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So then it becomes messing with our livelihood. And
Exactly.
and there's this concept I love. That concept is just a real thing of giving people unconditional positive regard. And what that means is, like, I know Caela, and I'm going to give her, like, let's say I'm the hirer, right? I'm like the company. If you give someone unconditional positive regard, you're giving them every opportunity to assume the best in their capability. And so, right. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, we do this with, like, when I'm in with a client, I give them unconditional positive regard. I say, I know this client, I'm going to come into this session knowing and believing and giving this person every opportunity to sorry, I'm open and I'm receiving everything they say as their truth, like, as this is who they are, this is what they believe. I'm giving them that openness and that safe space to be who they are, and giving them this positive regard for who they are. Do I need to re-say that, or was that okay?
I thought
right?
it was okay.
Okay. But
Yeah.
like when we're talking about this, it seems like your experience has been very opposite of that.
Yeah. And at the same time, like for work, especially with jobs like this, like a lot of people went to college and I almost got 2 degrees. So I spent so much money. So I've been into so much debt for this. And so then I can't get so many jobs just because I checked yes on having a disability. Um, so like where's the start and where does it end?
Geez, I don't know if we'll ever be able to answer that.
Exactly. Like even my second my set almost my second degree, I was having I won't get into that other issues. When I was talking to the university president, he was saying you should have gone to certain um events, but because of your epilepsy, you couldn't drive to get there. And I was like, okay, well, don't use my seizures against me. And there's just,
Right. Why
you
should
know,
that keep you from getting a degree that you have worked so hard for and you're
exactly.
good at that?
So now that's the thing. Like now, seizures and epilepsy is causing problems in work, college, and everything. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that there's like two ways to go with it. I'm just going to say both and then you can decide. Like there's the impact of what that means for your future in terms of like you said, jobs, opportunities, what doors open and what doors stay closed, right? And um how you find success in the world.
Mm.
Then I can't not go here because this is just who I am. The effect that that has on our perception of our own worth and how what we believe about ourselves. So when we constantly get, and I'm not this again, this is a question for you, Caela, right? Like I know, and I've been through similar things, so I can speak to it on my own in my own way, right? Like, but I work for myself, so it's different, like in terms of employment, right? But I'm just thinking, like, how do we, if we're constantly told, nope, no, this can't be this way, you're not able bodied enough, you're not this, you're not capable of this, like, but that's not the truth. We're just being told that by society. So I want to make that clear. Like, it's just that company after company has told you this, and you've been let go here and let go there. And oh, like you were on your first day of training, but you had a seizure and broke your cheekbone, so you can't go into work, right? Like, this is just one of those things that constantly there's this repetition of no, right?
Hmm.
The inability to do it. So at what point do we start believing that narrative, or how do we say this is null and void, I can't take this on to myself because I know that I'm worth fill in the blank.
Um, sorry, hold on. I'm
Don't be
breathing hard.
sorry.
Um, I think that point more, um, especially having seizures. So I um I was living in Texas at one point and I started having seizures a lot more. And I was living um with my ex-boyfriend and it got to a point where I think he started getting to a point where it was just like it affected his life of she's having seizures. So my life is getting worse and worse, and now we're not doing anything, and we can't do anything because she's having seizures, and we have to stay inside, and she has to not doing anything. So I decided to break up with him and move out and move back to Connecticut with my parents because I didn't want to make the impact on someone's life and um see that. And but at the same time, like, you see that as your worth, I guess, and that impact on you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as a whole. And it's not just as epilepsy at all. It's like as a um chronic illness. Like, you get told all the time, like, you have this, so like you can't work, you can't drive, you can't do anything. So I think it changes everything.
Yeah. It's almost like it can change our perspective of who we are.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it really, like, it blows up your life.
Yeah.
Which I think is a weird way. I'm sorry. It's a
No,
weird way to
please.
kind of change it.
No, because it shows what I love is this shows the resilience, right? Like what we've talked about in, in the beginning of today. The
Yeah.
resilience of not staying stuck in the condition. But then also the real challenges and the real vulnerability that it does bring to our life. There's no getting around that. Like neither of us can sit here and say, everything's sunshine and rainbows. Don't let this stop you from doing anything. Go like YOLO, go live your best life. Neither of us can sit here and say that we haven't hit barriers or boundaries when it comes, or need to address boundaries when it comes to the condition and how it's impacted the way we feel about ourselves. Um, and so I think this is probably one of the most important points I've ever talked about on the podcast, to be honest with you. Like when we start to mold our identity into the condition, or we start to say, okay, like I see how this is impacting this person's life, like the boyfriend, and it starts kind of eating at us. Like maybe I'm not worthy of, and I'm not saying this is you, I'm just in general, maybe I'm not worthy of a relationship. Maybe everyone I get close to is being hurt by my condition. Maybe, this has been a negative impact on this person's life and that person's life. Then, okay, let's go to the job stuff. Like that could easily become a narrative of I'm not capable of working at all.
Like
And that's
your brother. I'm sorry to bring your brother in. He probably has a perspective of um what it's like to be affected from being a sibling of someone with
Yeah,
epilepsy. And I have a brother too.
it it definitely did. And I think, I think a positive call to action for this is, all the people that it affects, you ultimately, like, if I didn't grow up with that, I don't think I would be as empathetic as I am, so there's also that side of it. And I think about that with the employers and such too, is like, you know, people with chronic conditions need to speak up about it, like you're talking about, and bring awareness to it. And employers need to have that empathy. People just in general need to have that empathy. And, you guys can't control this, but for the most part, it's like you know, you didn't choose this. And I think that for me, it's been a huge part of my development and my understanding of the world or people. Um, and I think honestly, more people need to acknowledge that or be aware of it, and more people need to be empathetic towards it. And it's honestly a privilege to, you know, kind of look down on somebody because of their condition. And you know, like, but some people just don't even know. Like, I always used to say this to Paige, but it really bothered me when kids around me would joke about seizures, because I was always like, well, you don't even you've never even seen a seizure. You know, you don't know what it's like to care or tend to someone who's having a seizure. So it's a privilege for you to be joking about that.
You always make me want to cry when you say that.
It's the best example, though. Like,
it is. It is the best example. Go ahead, continue, Fred.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if I stayed on point, but
no, I
Caela,
think you
if I cut you off.
I think you did, because here's the reality of it that will probably tie the bow on this, is that when we have, when we are seeking a job or when we are seeking a relationship, we want to be able to be in that abundance empowered mindset with those people. So surrounding ourselves with people who support us through it is the most important part to life. And in terms of the way that I've found empowerment and success is I found a husband who doesn't, I'll give you an example. We were at an event at some point in our life, I'll put it that way, and there was a big insurance issue with my medication. And he went to bat for me. And they were like, well, you know, maybe she can try this medication instead because it's covered by insurance, right? Like this whole thing. And we all know anticonvulsants are the worst. You can't just stop an anticonvulsant because you will have a seizure.
You will convulse.
Yes, you cannot stop it. So they're like, you know, maybe she can, and he's like, Paige is not the problem here. She's not broken. She needs a medication in order to live her life, and the insurance company is not covering it. So don't blame it on her. She's a functioning human being that just needs this med, right? Like that was the, and so I think it's really easy for some people to be like, well, yeah, like, is it her? Is it, you know, is there something else she could do? He's like, no, this is injustice because she is a functioning human. She's just as capable as any of us. And you're pointing the finger at her when you could point the finger at the insurance company who we know is in the wrong. So anyways, I know I got a little animated there, but like he went to bat for me, right? Like these are the people that we need in our lives. Whereas, and we need to know that I was so like honored when he did that, because in a way I was like, wow, like he really does look at me and view me as a human being that is just like any of us. He's not saying, oh, poor Paige, pity, you know, like there's none of that. It's no, she is who she is. She just happens to have a condition and we need to take care of that, you know, like, so there are those people in our lives that empower us and help us, and they're not ashamed of who we are, or they, you know, and so it's, I think that speaks to the human being. So like we might have our parents or our siblings or find partners who are considerate for that. And that's not, again, against your ex-boyfriend, Caela. It's more of just like, there's going to be someone out there who genuinely cares about how you're doing, right? Or the jobs, like maybe there's a company out there that really supports the development of people with chronic conditions and doesn't define their worth based on if they're having a seizure today or not. And so we need to find, well, who are those people and who are those companies? And I know that that probably is a lot harder, like easier said than done. But I know that there are a lot of business owners out there who have children or relatives with conditions or disabilities and might be actually empathetic to that specific individual and be ready to support them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that kind of ties a bow on what we need to be looking for in our life actively, without diminishing the experience you've had, Caela, because it is definitely a tough, there's a lot there.
Well, it'll tell you perfect though.
So yeah, so Caela, what do you think? Do you have anything? Yeah, do you think there's anything you'd want to share with the listeners for a call to action?
Listen to the podcast and just wake up every day and just try your best and just crush it. Honestly, just live every day in the moment.
I love that. And I think you're such a great example of being vulnerable and real about the stuff that is challenging in your life. And I mean, I know you're going to crush it because you have so many amazing skills. But also, and with that, being open and vulnerable, and then also being so empowering to let someone else know that, no, you can still go out and apply for jobs. This is how we might want to do it. Or you can still go to the gym. And if you have a seizure, that doesn't have to hold you back from doing, the things that you love doing. I love your competitive nature. Love that. And that you're training your own service dog, which is amazing. So thank you for being here today and being open and really real about the challenges of epilepsy, because I think a lot of people, and this is kind of a good takeaway from today too, I think a lot of people don't really understand the difficulty of living with epilepsy specifically. I think that there's so much to it, and we only scratch the surface of it. And it's not that uncommon. It's not it's 1 in 26 people. So if you're on a bus or you're at a concert or you're, wherever you are, like there's most likely someone around you that either does or knows someone with epilepsy. And it's important to kind of know some of the behind the scenes challenges because it is mostly invisible until we fall off a treadmill or, have a seizure in Home Goods. It's mostly invisible, and that's can be a positive, but also can be really challenging. So, to everybody, to everyone listening, we thank you for being here. This is an awesome conversation, and we hope that you have understood a little bit more about what it's like to live in Caela's shoes and mine.